Hello all. Welcome to episode 4 of the Intersectional Vegan series. Today I wanted to touch on a common idea that I've seen in a lot of recent vegan advocacy, namely this one. Now I get the basic idea, and agree with it, that all forms of subjugation are immoral and harmful, but nonetheless, this sort of thing is problematic. First of all, I want to put aside any semantics about whether or not speciesism is quote-unquote a thing. For this topic, that's really beside the point. Secondly, it's important to realize that speciesism does not operate in the same way as systems of oppression within the human species, such as racism, sexism, heterosexism, ableism, classism, and so forth. Systems of oppression within the human species are based on social constructs, because species, unlike race, gender roles, classes, etc., is not a social construct. Speciesism does not operate the same way. Furthermore, there are ways in which these isms within our species overlap, like racialized sexism, trans-exclusive radical feminism, and ideas about quote-unquote crazy homeless people deserving to be mocked rather than helped. But speciesism does not intersect with any of these systems within our own species. To be sure, there are ways in which female animals are subjugated in arguably more cruel ways than males. I even made a video about it, the first video I made in this series. And exploitation of animals is often excused for reasons of animal intelligence or lack thereof, but these are more reflections of misogyny and ableism within our own species than they are actual intersections. We can recognize exploitation, subjugation, and killing of animals as unjust just without comparing systems of oppression facing animals to those facing certain groups of humans. This is something we all need to collectively recognize. This mindset becomes especially problematic when you have rhetoric like this that seemingly presupposes that racism, sexism, and homophobia, as well as other oppressive systems in our own species, are no longer a problem. This is not the case. Just like exploitation and mass killing of animals is still a problem, even when we have things like police brutality against people of color, rape culture, trans teens being disowned by their parents, LGBTQ people being victims of hate crimes, the high occurrence and lack of treatment of mental illness, especially within poor communities and communities of color, war and imperialism. All these things are still problems even when animals are being exploited and killed on a mass scale. Many vegans will rightly tell meat eaters who argue the former that they're wrong and the argument is illogical, but will gladly turn around and argue the latter. I think the most insidious form of this mindset comes when vegans are also eager to partake in these oppressive mindsets themselves.
Get fucked. And you're like, oh, what about scurvy? Oh, what about, you can't just live on bread. Okay, alright. But, dude, they enrich the bread. You could live on the bread for a while. And you could eat beans and rice. Like, even if you had to eat out because you didn't have a rice cooker because you actually were homeless, if we took it to the extreme, $1.50 for 600 calories of cooked rice. Albeit, you still don't have vitamin C, but we're getting in the right direction. You say, oh, well, you can't really cook potatoes. That's true. But, dude, you wouldn't have to do a lot of fucking work to get, like, you just scrounge up a couple of fucking extra cans after you get your $1 a day for 1,600 calories of bread. I guess that's not really enough, but, like, how many calories do you really think a fucking homeless person's eating anyways? Maybe they're getting a large soda or some shit. I don't know. But a homeless person eating carbohydrates, and you're like, okay, but what about the other nutrients? It's like, dude, one head of fucking lettuce, like, dude, these people are boozing hard. They can find the money for some fucking carrots or some apples. Like, honestly, dude, if a homeless person walked up to me in the fucking supermarket and asked me if I would buy him some apples, I would get the motherfucker a bag of apples, like or a box. Depends on how fucking much I like the guy. But, like, it's like, they're not asking for fucking apples, man. They're asking for money to buy fucking scotch or whatever they do. And you say, like, it's a privilege.
would make you more money to title the book Breaking Vegan rather than Breaking Orthorexia. And you know what? I would like to make a book titled Breaking a Dumb Bitch's Face.
The latest lie being spread about me is that I am a racist because in a calm and sober assessment of the Israeli-Palestinian situation, I said that Palestinians are the most psychotic group of people on the planet. I stand by that statement, but I want to clarify something essential. I'm a misanthrope, not a racist. I hate all human beings, Palestinians and Israelis. All humans are a psychotic scourge to this planet. Whites, blacks, men, women, heterosexuals, homosexuals, Republicans, Democrats. Shit, I even hate vegans. But I remain a vegan activist because vegans cause the least amount of harm to the animals and the entire planet. Now you might be wondering why I believe the Palestinians are slightly crazier than the Israelis. First, the Israelis would gladly live. Do you realize in America that when blacks were freed from slavery, they were given 40 acres and a mule? They were actually given a fucking mule! Moreover, as black people have been marching the streets of America because a bunch of psychotic cops have been murdering them with near impunity, at the end of the day, these protesters are going home to eat murdered animals. They are treating the animals in the same vile, disgusting way that the cops treated Eric Gardner, Freddie Gray, and the others. What a lovely display of hypocrisy right before our very eyes. But does anyone have the guts to call them out besides me?
Yeah. You don't need to pretend racism isn't still a problem to care about animals. You don't need to accuse people struggling with mental illness, or their gender identity, or their sexuality, or all three of quote-unquote first world problems to care about animals. You don't need to pretend that calling out oppressive behavior from others, including vegans, shouldn't be done because it's too quote-unquote divisive, or pretend that vegans who talk about racism, sexism, etc. are too quote-unquote sensitive or quote-unquote politically correct. This is gaslighting, and frankly, it's not cool. Part of becoming a vegan and an activist is being more willing to accept uncomfortable realities, especially about one's own behavior and the behavior that one has defended in the past. It's not asking something superhuman of others just to not be racist, or not be sexist, or not make privileged statements like it's easy to be vegan, or framing any reason for not being vegan as an excuse, quote-unquote, again. Or to pretend these isms are all over, and that speciesism is all there is left to deconstruct. Or at least not get defensive when asked to check one's privilege. This is not being asked to check one's privilege is not an insult. I have privilege. I am a queer black woman with clinical depression. I also happen to be able-bodied, cisgender, and was raised in an upper middle class suburb with little crime and access to education, a chance to go to college, and to learn about nutrition and have access to fresh, healthy food. And when I first became a vegan, I used to be someone who was willing to overlook bad behavior, up to and including things like PETA's problematic comparison of factory farming to black slavery and the Holocaust, and Gary Yourofsky's countless antics, if it was for the animals' benefit. Not anymore. It's not called going soft, and neither is it being an apologist. It's getting real. It's realizing it's not an ideal world. That everyone becoming a vegan won't necessarily make it an ideal world. That ignoring human issues doesn't bring animals closer to freedom. That vegan doesn't necessarily mean the quote-unquote least amount of harm. That being a world citizen is understanding the world is bigger than just me, or just you, or just anyone. It's about getting real. And this includes realizing that racism, sexism, and every other ism within our own species still exists as much as animal exploitation, and all of them are worth fighting. So please, everyone, let's get real. Thank you, and as always, peace and love.